Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I am happy to have with me this afternoon Mr. Roy Williams, Alderman of Ward 3, and also a veteran in this Memorial Day. And I want to thank you for your service, Roy.
I
And
appreciate it.
we're going to start out our show with the talk of the town with Frank McNeil, and I got Roy Williams. And Roy, just give us a little bit of background on your service to the United States of America.
Well, I joined the service when I was 17 years old,
Oh my God!
fresh
No,
out of
really?
fresh out of graduating from Springfield Southeast High School in 1976. And
Wow.
in that October, I graduated in June. That October, I entered the service. My mom cried like a baby, but my dad signed the paper because I was only 17. And there I was. I stayed in service for 12 years.
Okay,
I had
where was your first duty station?
My first duty station was Fort Bliss, Texas. Well, no, that
Wow.
was my training. That's where I did my basic training. Then after that, my first duty station actually was a beautiful duty station in Key West, Florida. It was a Navy air station that
Oh,
had the
okay.
Marines, the Army, the Air Force. Everybody was on the base. It was one of those joint bases.
Wow. And so you were there. Did you ever go overseas while you were?
Yes, yes. I lived in Germany for 3 years. Of course, everybody has to do their Europe tour. I also did 1 year in Korea, South Korea, Daegu, South Korea. So I did while I was doing the 12 years have the experience of seeing both, because usually soldiers only see Germany or they only see Korea. I saw both sides of the world because I stayed in 12 years until I got, a kidney disease and had to have a transplant. I had to leave service.
Right. So what part of Germany were you in?
I was in a place called Rheinberg, which is in northern Germany. So I had to travel a few hours to get to Frankfurt and the big American style type cities. I was definitely in the hood of of Germany, where deep in German culture, because I was in
Well,
a smaller place.
well, I had a brother that taught school for the Department of Defense,
Oh,
and he was in Wiesbaden, and he was in Munich, and he was in a place called Garmisch,
okay,
particular.
okay. He was
Are
in
you familiar?
Yes, I am. Germany is like traveling a state, really. It's
Right,
not,
right.
so everybody within a few hours you're out in all of them. So if he was in Munich, it was very much Americanized. And then, of course, any base you're on, no matter how small or how big, you feel like you're in America because they turn it all into it with a commissary,
Well,
PX,
yes.
all that stuff.
He was a public school principal for the base school,
Yes,
and
yeah, yeah, I did.
so he
Okay.
so he did about 30 years over in
Wow.
Europe. His whole
So,
tour of
as a
duty.
military man
No,
or as a
he was a
civilian?
civilian. He was
DOD
a
civilian.
civilian.
Okay.
Yes, DOD
Wow.
civilian.
Interesting.
So so he was over there, and so I just wanted to know if you may have run into him and not known
Not
it.
known. Right. That's right. Because it's a small world over there when it comes to the American community.
Okay, Roy, you were appointed initially to your seat on the city council by former mayor Jim Langfelder, and I will ask. Now you're under. You've gotten your full term. You won a full term, and now you're under a new mayor, Misty Busher. What
Yes.
has been the most challenging issue that you've had since you've been down there?
As far as issue on the council with my colleagues, or as an actual
Whatever the issue is,
Oh, well,
what's
to me,
been the most
it's
challenging?
been a bunch of them, but I would say the most challenging one is to get people to see the whole Springfield. I believe that the councilmen that represent the West, they see Springfield from the West view. So when we have an issue like broadband, they've been having broadband for years and really have it in the most updated and most recent, whereas over here, we don't even have the infrastructure to support half of the type of broadband they have. So they like to scream to do things online when my folks can't do it online because they're just now getting into computers, or they're trying to do stuff on the internet on an iPhone, which is
Right.
inappropriate. Doctor's appointments, going to school, filling out applications, all that. They need the appropriate desktop or at least a laptop, to do it right. I just think things become too difficult. So we
Right.
had broadband support and broadband money, and they took it out the budget. That was one of my very first challenges, and I would say disappointments in the city council, and realizing that they just don't see it all. They can't see what me and I would say a few other aldermen, 4, 2, which is Sean, of course, and
Right.
sometimes 5 and 6. On this side of town, east of MacArthur, they have a different experience in the Springfield that's out west. They just do. We just see a difference. If you drive it, you actually see it physically.
Right. Well, let me
You know.
revert back for a few minutes to the old days. And I always said that this is one Springfield. We keep separating Springfield East and West, but it's still one Springfield. And when people come into the east of Springfield off the highway, all they know is it's Springfield. They don't know it's East Side, and this is where predominantly all African Americans. But unfortunately, as you travel and as I've traveled all over the world and wherever, you can tell certain things about community, because the first thing you find is railroad tracks, and you got to be close to the neighborhood
right.
if you want to.
Sure, yeah, the hood.
And so it shouldn't be that way. When you come into Springfield, it should be you're coming into Springfield, and you shouldn't know where you are other than the fact that this is the city of Springfield. And when you travel, it should be seamless throughout the city. And you shouldn't have to worry that I'm in the bad part of the city or the good part of the city. You should be in Springfield and feel safe and secure wherever you are.
That's true.
So, how is your relationship with the Mayor Busher? That is an issue that you have issues. Sometimes you can communicate with the mayor. Sometimes she's on a different point of view. Do you have a cordial relationship?
Yeah, on a personal level, I can get along with her, and I think we get along. Is when others, and I'll be honest, is when others influence both of us. Meaning people around her can influence her to think or act and believe a certain way, and people around me can, get me to do the same thing, to act and believe and take things a certain way. So what I would say about her is I think she is a young mayor and a new mayor, and she thinks, I think, that I don't prefer her because I didn't support her, and therefore I don't like her, things like that. I will say things have improved somewhat, that we communicate a lot more, but it wasn't that I was trying to give the new administration a hard time. I was trying to hold the administration accountable, and still do try to hold them accountable, just like I did under Jim Langfelder.
Well, I think sometimes I can go back to days when former Mayor Ozzie Langfelder and I didn't see eye to eye on things, and so we were of the same party. So it doesn't matter what party or what persuasion you come from. It's about what are you doing for the best interest of the people that you serve.
Correct.
And I think sometimes if we can look at it from that perspective, is that I'm representing my people. I'm doing what is best for the people I serve. And it doesn't matter whether the mayor is Mr. Busher or Jim Langfelder or Tim Davlin or whoever, but I'm trying to do what's best for my residents.
That is so true. So I think what makes me a little different is that I'm here because of groups of people who asked me to put my name in and to run. I supported Langfelder because he brought me to the table. He brought me to the dance by selecting me, and it's time for him to run. So naturally, I'm going to support him and be with him. Okay, the election happened. That's over with. I still have to be true to the people that I represent, which tend to be Democrats and poor people. Now, I know they say the east side is the black side. That's because it might be majority, but there's many whites here. I think the difference in the East and West really is about class and about income levels
Right.
instead of so much black and white. There's a lot of blacks out West that I
Well,
talk to and learn things from. I mean, it really is, we're everywhere in the city. That's why I can relate to you saying it's one Springfield.
right.
But when we talk about that dividing line, we're really talking class. We're talking about what type of income people have and what they can produce and bring. East Side constantly loses their high income people to the West and to the South and sometimes far north. And I'm not so much angry at that. I don't get mad at anybody for wanting to come up. What's frustrating is when they're good people, I need them to stay in the hood to help model good citizenship. The good
Yes.
citizenship and
You
how to
want
take care of
you
home.
want somebody, you want a representative who does all of the things that a good citizen should do to
Right.
be in the neighborhood. Because when you lose those people, who's setting the example for the young people to look at and say, hey, that's the kind of guy you should be like.
Yeah.
And when you lose those people, it's hard to get back that kind of representation in your neighborhood.
Right. I mean, they may not be elected, but they're a good homeowner. They take
Right.
care of their property. They take care of their landscape, their yards, and just the simplest things. When too many of them leave and we're left with nobody that knows how to do that, I feel like then I'm representing some people who have houses that don't know how to take care of the house, or they don't have the ability or the resources, whereas that person that used to live on that block did have that ability to show them, to let them use the lawnmower, let them use the weed whacker. They may have a lawnmower, but they don't have a weed whacker, or they don't
Right.
have this or that. Life was just easier to maintain the block when the good people were there that knew what they were doing and would share and teach. A homeowner that just got the house because grandmother passed, and so
Right.
she passes the house down to me, but I don't get a class after she passes away to tell me about filters, about roofs, about how to maintain and take care of a home. So many of the people that know about that stuff, they come up through their promotions or whatever and get better in their life, and then they leave, they move. And
Well,
Springfield tends to be west.
and I hear you saying you're not opposed to upward mobility and people, living in an area, because at the end of the day, and I say all people want to have a safe, quiet neighborhood where they
Sure.
can sit on the porch or walk around the corner and not feel that they got to duck or dodge, to get back home.
Yeah, we
And
have more in common. We have more in common than we have.
you have all of those things. You want good schools for your kids. You want to be able to earn a decent living. And so these are the things that we have in common. And how do we get people to understand that this commonality is something they should look at and say, how do we help the most depressed area of the city come into play with us? And
Well,
instead of saying, well, I don't want to do that because, I'm taking resources away from my own.
first you got to understand that when we look at Springfield, we're catching up over here. We're so far behind, we have to catch up. Broadband was just one example. I can go with I think the only people that really got it so far is the school district. Well, the three schools are still really pretty much east, no matter how you look at it.
Right, right.
They toward this side of town. So all three schools are going to be new or get new additions and getting fixed up pretty good with the COVID money and all the stuff they got, through the funding sources. Whereas in any other area, it's always a competition. Well, should you get that? Well, because the census tracts are over here that need that. There's justification for it. And the only reason why the state and federal government use census tract to find out and identify unemployment, single family homes, poverty, and all those type of things is to fix it.
Right. They've identified the areas that need the most service and need the most help. That's why they do those. And that's why your CSBG has targeted precincts, 17 targeted precincts throughout the east and northeast of the city that are, the zone where the majority of your CSBG dollars are supposed to be spent.
Right.
And so that's because they're trying to say bring everything up to a standard of living where everybody's sort of on the same level.
Right. Balance it out a little bit. Balance
Yes.
it out. It's lopsided in Springfield right now. And those programs will help, and grants and everything else will help us do that if we don't get so much fight the way we've been getting fight. And we're getting fight because we're not understanding. We're not favoring one side over. We're taking care of the neediest and trying to get stuff done.
Your popular place is now under redevelopment, and how is that going? Because there was a big fight to get that done and get
Yeah.
it up and running. But how is it coming along, and is it really beginning to change the landscape over in
Well,
Ward Three?
the landscape, yes, the physical structures are beautiful. It looks nice. New streets, new sidewalk, new lighting. In the future, we'll be having new landscape with trees and all that. But the jury is still out on behavior, on how people are going to take care of them. We hope that they have the management style that Madison Park Place had, because Madison Park Place now has been at least 10 years ago, and it
Right.
didn't revert back. And that's what we want. We don't want Popular Place to revert back. My only disappointment so far with Popular Place was it was not used appropriately as a workforce development when there was a lot of opportunity to do that. And that's where I had some issues with certain unions not allowing minorities and women, I'll just say blacks and women, to participate at a level to make a difference, to learn those skills and to do those things. But I did get some, and from what people have told me, it's the most you've ever gotten in the past. So, I mean, I could just take it for what it is and go on. And some of the people I saw over there, they were of color and they were women. They weren't necessarily from Springfield, which is another thing that I fight about: residency in all our projects, as well as residency as a whole. Of course, this administration changed that and just opened the city up to anywhere, pretty much the whole county, which to me wasn't good. This is the problem in Springfield. We don't focus on Springfield. We focus on this county-wide area where we pick up all these other areas, and we still have our own issues, especially in the core of our city.
There are a number of things going on in Springfield, and I talk about metro government quite a bit. And
Sure.
I think it's hard to get people to understand what's going on in the transition, or what is trying to be transitioned slowly but surely. The county government is trying to take over and have one unit of government called metro government, and where the county, because it's the overlapping county area, it will engulf the city, and the management of the area will be by the county government. And have you given any thought to that, or have you? I because I came in at the time when this is all changing, I have seen the erosion of the city's power and authority. We gave away the park district. We gave away the health. We didn't give them away. There were deals done, and there was a referendum on the health department. But the county has absorbed all of these functions, and now what we are seeing is economics, and then the issue you had with the township, Capital
Yes.
Township.
Yeah.
The funding is being controlled by the county when all of the money is generated in the city. So
Unfair.
these are the things that when people have to stop and think about why is it that some things don't get done, or how they're done, and that this push and pull, and now because there is, quote, Misty Busher, a quote Republican, and the county board is Republican, everything is sort of working seamlessly because there is a understanding that we want to transition as much as we possibly can.
Yeah. So it's always a fight with that. But I think if we focus on the citizens of Springfield, we know that's not the right thing to do. And you can look at things like animal control, for example. Animal control is at the county. We gave it up. We fund it, but we don't get the services. And you hear
Mhm.
that no matter what side of town you're on or where you're at, they just can't get the job done. But we gave that away or
Yes,
negotiated that away or whatever. That's one good example. I get calls about by the time the animal control got here, the dog was gone that bit somebody, or the dog was gone that was loose, or the house burnt up and the cat was still in it because they, all these different
right,
scenarios that you hear. And then and I look and say, well, what happened? Well, we were in Riverton, or we were in Chatham, or we were in Sherman, again, that county piece. So some things it ain't even appropriate for to
right,
be combining those things. They need to stay. I heard they did it because in the name of saving money in the
right.
healthcare administration, we're going to save money if we put these things together. During my term, the thing I saw so far has been the buses. I grew up under Springfield Mass Transit. It is now called Sangamon County Mass Transit. I used to tell Mayor Langfelder, we got to be careful. They're building their footprint. Pretty soon they're going to be bigger in downtown Springfield than the city itself. Because when they do it, they name these things after Sangamon County. They do these things, but supposedly it's supposed to benefit all of us. I'm not sure if that's true. So I like us as aldermen to really think through things that we let go. What we're going to have next, the Sangamon County Library, and then all the other little towns come into. And I mean, I just don't get it. I think we should focus on making Springfield strong and really empower Springfield people. But when we give our jobs away and we give our resources away like this, we don't have parks. You see what I'm saying? All this stuff, and it's political because, as we know, all out in the county, and all the county is Republican, and the inner city is Democrat, and that's the game we're playing right now. And until people wake up and realize how it impacts their lives, we're going to keep suffering from this kind of change.
Right. Okay. Grapevine is telling me that there may be an ordinance coming that will eliminate 3 o'clock licenses. Have you heard that? And is there any truth to it?
I have heard that, and I have gotten information and seen different things that makes me see why they will want to do it. I think I grew up under 3 o'clocks, and I was young at one time, and I appreciate it. However, I kept myself inside of where I was until the bar closed at 3 o'clock. I didn't hang outside and get in the streets and start doing drinking outside and doing all that. So it's the behavior that's destroying the 3 o'clock license, the shootings, the fighting. We had fights, but we never had this kind of shooting thing. I mean, we're just in a different world. The respect for police. We respect the police if we didn't fear them. But I do think the young folks today just don't care if the cop is standing right there. They'll do illegal activity. I've seen it in the video, open containers, walking around, seeing a cop standing right there, all that time, parking illegally, a noise nuisance with the kind of bass that shatters and shakes everything, and you can't be sleeping because of all that. So I just think they kind of brought that on themselves. I think this current mayor has explained to me that we have picked up the county traffic now because the county changed to 1 o'clock. So now all of them run into where 3 o'clocks, as well as the surrounding communities. You see it in the arrests, the Decatur people, the Peoria people, the Jacksonville people. They're 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock town. So they run over and stay where they are latest. So the thought is, if we change to 1 o'clock, we won't attract this many because it ain't worth it, because we're all closing at the same time. But as long as we're that outside entity that allowed on the party that late, we're going to get that packed out to where we end up with something similar to what you call a pop-up party.
Well, that was where I was getting to, is that, again, I'm one who believes that you monitor the establishments that are creating the biggest problem.
Sure.
And if that establishment is creating the biggest problem and creating the most havoc at 3 o'clock or 3 o'clock from 1 to 3, then that person has to be disciplined either by licensure or by fine or both. to try to get them into accord with the rules and regulations. But this is just a pet peeve of mine. I don't think broad brushing the all of the licensees, you follow me, because of the one or two licensees are out there doing things or allowing things to happen. And then I think there is probably going to be a larger need for security because sometimes these aggressive, incorrigible people who will drive up and come into your space and disregard the law, disregard your rules and regulation, create a problem. And when the police show up, all they know that there's a problem. They don't know why it can happen. They know it's a problem, and they're there to resolve it and do the best they can. So I think a little bit better management, if I can say it that way, of some of these facilities might be helpful. But I think from the perspective of now, I'm a little bit older and wiser, if I can say it that way. Looking at Springfield, and we're getting ready to get bigger and better, with the Shields Park and the new hotels. And all of a sudden, what has been somewhat of an attraction is going to be gone because if they shut down the 3 o'clocks, I think that they play a role in tourism and allowing people to plan and do some things that they may not be able to do in other areas.
Yeah, and I think that we have to be real careful with that because that's when we'll hear them say, well, we need a special license for this event or that event. Now we're picking and choosing who can. Right. Now the police will tell you, well, the reason why we got to do everybody is because if we just do the problem bar, all they do is go find the next 3 o'clock bar to go to. Like they'll leave wherever they're at and go to the next downtown 3 o'clock bar. Or the next bar. We don't have that many. So I think that's why the police think just do them all and be through with it. Everybody's 1 o'clock. So we don't have that traffic just going for, because that's what's happening with the county. The county went into the 3 o'clock Springfield bars.
Right.
No, they did their 1 o'clock thing.
The thing though, Roy, is calls for service will tell you a lot about the bars.
Yes. Yes.
And we used to use that as a standard measuring stick, is who had the most calls for service and what was so called. See, sometimes people have a call for service for the things that are not even related to the bar.
Right.
It's a call for service. You got to look at the calls for service and have the police department break down where this call for service came from, why it was there, and then some of them could be eliminated. We're talking about major incidents of shooting, fighting, loud music, underage drinking. Those are the things that I feel are the primary things that you want to stay on top of. And if the call for service is for a parking violation and things like that, we got to be able to distinguish between what is serious and what is just a routine check and say, hey, get in line.
Yeah, so I agree with you on the management piece, the call for service, all that I think could work and do it, but people have to put a lot of more work into it because crowd control.
It's a responsibility of the bar owner.
Yeah,
if you want to stay open,
once they're outside the bar, and they're off
that still on the bar property.
Well, that's what happens. This thing starts spreading. People are smart. They start, well, I'm going to go where I parked on the side of the road. So now they're not in the parking lot, but they're right next to the bar still. And the bar can be the nucleus where it starts, and then it just grows and grows. And now I'm out on these neighborhood streets, and it goes around. And just to be, this last one was estimated to be from a minimum 600 people to probably 1,000.
That was a pop-up?
At least, yeah. No, that was a after effect after a bar closed, more or less. After a bar closed, I don't like to use names unless we're going to use all of them,
Sure, sure.
And the bar had closed, and the police were out there in force trying to do things, and we start having instances like people getting hit by cars. One time there was shooting. 2 girls got shot in the ankle, it ricocheted off the ground, and just all those kind of incidents are foolishness. If the bar is closed, leave. If you have good bouncers, tell them get off the property. If you're not coming in and staying, but you can't
Right.
hang out in your car. That kind of
Right.
stuff, you know.
Yes.
That stops all that drinking in the car, drinking on the outside of the car, all that. Just you got to stop it.
You got to manage your parking lot. You got to manage your parking lot, and if when they come out, they have to leave the parking lot. If they're
Sure.
coming out, or if they're going in, they go in. If they come out, they have to leave. And that to me, I mean, I'm not trying to solve all those problems.
No. So it's not about time. Is what I argue. It's not about time because 3 o'clock ain't the reason why they're doing it. If you move it to 1 and they do it at 1, what then?
Yes.
Day parties. It happens at day parties. Trial. It's holding people accountable and having the right type of security and management of the event. It can happen in the daytime. It can happen in the evening, or it can happen like it happens at 3 a.m. But I really think you can't blame it on 3 a.m. licenses unless, Frank, you do what you say. You look at call for services. And I think sometimes we resent doing that because we'll find out, well, it's about the same. The 1 o'clock bars have the same type of calls.
Right. That's the point, is that why are you going to punish one licensee because they have a 3 o'clock license and may not have the calls of service the one at 1 o'clock had?
Yeah, I try to defer to Alderman Gregory because, you know, him and other Alderman Purchase, they have the 3 o'clocks. I don't have 3 o'clocks. You know where my 3 o'clocks are? The Crown Plaza Hotel or my big hotels and places like that really don't have these kind of issues. So I just say, I guess it's because people really don't go to a fancy hotel and to have a party. You know, they may go to an event there, but they really do leave that event and go on. It's not their party place. The out-of-towners, I think, behave that way because they're not at home. I'm from Peoria, but I'm in Springfield. I'm going to act up because I'm going to jump on 55 and be back home. You know,
right. I'm not going to be there when it happens.
It ain't my yard. It ain't my neighborhood. I'm going to leave all my trash, you know. So I just think when you get so many out-of-town folks like that too, they don't behave the same if they were at home.
If we're going to be, quote, the tourism city, do you think people come here to have a good time and 1 o'clock is enough? Or do you think they ought to have the option?
Well, I think you should have the option. Of course I do. But I think when we, like they'll say, we talked to all the people downtown and they said, oh, yeah, get them going. I mean, that ain't who I make my money from anyway. And all this kind of stuff. Well, they're not the bar owners down there. You're talking to all the little shops and the little restaurants down there that close at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. They're not open, you know, so it wouldn't impact them. I think we have to listen to everybody and not just your select that are going to support your ideal. The mayor has to make the decision, put it out there, and the city council has to be held accountable to how they vote on things. This will be one of those things, you know, you better weigh both sides and figure out what's best for Springfield is all I can say. If I was at a convention and I'm in the capital city, I would expect if I wanted to, there should be opportunity.
You have the option. You have the option. And
they're going to create it anyway. This is what I'm trying to get them to understand. Just because you close at 1 don't mean it goes away. My fear, and I shared this with the police, my fear is that now they go into the neighborhoods where people are asleep. Somebody says, come to my house. And they say, well, they'll get fined. Well, sometimes when they're on the public street and you can't figure out whose house they at, but they there. See what I'm saying?
Right. Well, at the end of the day, it's about accountability and about personal development. People got to be in control of themselves when they go in and out, and they have to have some conscience about, I'm in somebody else's neighborhood. I don't want them to wake me up. If I was at home at sleep, I wouldn't want somebody to come in and booming and loud music and all that kind of stuff. It's about respect, mutual respect for one another.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, a large part of our younger people don't seem to understand that yet,
Right.
and it's a failing, I think, on our part. And we try to, as we say, try to tell the youngsters, hey man, don't do this, don't do that. But some of them pretty snarly, as you know. they don't.
Well, yeah.
They
So
don't.
I try to respect everybody, and I think, to be honest, I think the mayor and the police and the people who are proposing this um, feel they're doing the right thing for the citizens of Springfield. They feel they don't want their downtown tore up, not and they don't want any part of the city tore up, or to have these big incidents where they just grow and then they're out of control. So I agree, we have to do something about them. This issue of changing the time of the bars, I'm not quite sure it's the biggest fix that you could do. I have often had really radical thoughts like surround them, take all the license plate pictures, and everybody gets this ticket in the mail. So grandma gets the ticket because you had her car, or the girlfriend gets the ticket because you had her car. So what? You teach them not to, let your car be where it shouldn't be.
Right.
And it's just that
Well,
simple. But we have to try some kind of methods, or maybe if you don't ticket them, it gets towed. And they say, well, I needed to be at work, or I got to do this. And well, you gave it to, your mate, and your mate was in the wrong place with it and we just took all the cars. So people say that's harder than, it's harder than what I'm saying. And it might be, but we got to try some things out. And I think they have a start when they say they're going to punish the organizers. My problem is
who are
identifying
the
the
organizers?
organizers. Well,
I don't
that's
know
right, because they're
how
doing
you
it
identify.
online, they're doing it in code. And just because you have a barbecue at your house for a certain amount of people, and all of a sudden you look up and there's all these other people, that don't mean you organize that thing. We're going to run into some legal technicalities
Right.
with this, but we'll see what happens. I'll be open-minded about all of it.
Well, Alderman, I appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. I was hoping to get you and your cohort, Alderman Gregory. Unfortunately, we can't find him today.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's
I,
Memorial Day. Yeah, it's Memorial Day.
I'm
So
looking forward to getting you guys together, and maybe even Alderman Purchase, so that we
yeah,
can get her comments in as
she
well.
has a
Because
lot of bars. I think that would be great. I
yeah,
think,
she's got the downtown, and so
yeah.
there are going to be some people who downtown might not be as crazy about the idea of closing down. But hey, uh, we will have to survive whatever happens,
That's
and
right,
we
because
will,
it takes 6 votes and you get your
right.
way, So, so we'll
Uh,
see what happens. We all been young before.
all right, tell me about it.
Yeah,
All right, Roy, I appreciate the time, Alderman,
and
and
I
look forward to
appreciate
having
you
you. And this is Talk of the Town, and we're
talking
signing
to
off.
town. I
Thank
like the
you.
name. Okay,
All right, Roy.
take care.